Hello, this is Jean Pow Barabajagal. It's Friday, so I thought I'd do a freeform Friday video here. I am trying to film videos that are horizontal because in the past I've held my cell phone and someone made a comment to try and, fill the screen doing things horizontal. So, one small step for professionalism. Um, this is on a selfie stick that isn't particularly well balanced. I got a new phone that if you tighten up here, sometimes it shuts it off or something like that. So I'm just hoping this doesn't fall. Um, in the meantime, we'll see what we can do. I have bought some things lately and watched some things and listened to some things. So I'll just do a free form of some of the things I want to talk about. I got basically a pile of DVDs lately because I went to Half Price Books and they can get some things in for really reasonable in the music section. So I went through CDs, but I did more video pickups. I never had seen all of this movie, and I'd really wanted to see it. It Might Get Loud, which stars Jack White, The Edge from U2, and Jimmy Page. And I really enjoyed it. I'd seen, I would say, probably about 30% of the movie before. I think I was on an airplane or something, so, the sound. I may have not had earphones to watch it, is what I think I remember. So I was, not hearing all the dialogue. Um, but yeah, it's really an interesting group to focus on those three because they all have very different styles, and they're kind of doing a symposium where they're sharing their experiences and talking about guitar with each other. And while I like Jack White and I like The Edge, for me the star of it was Jimmy Page. He just really comes across as interesting and cool in it. And I'm not the biggest Led Zeppelin fan. I know their catalog, and right now I actually don't have any of their LPs or CDs. But after that, I went out and I picked up this. So I'm really looking forward to watching this because, of course, I've seen video of them live. I remember I want to say a 1970 era show I saw as a midnight movie once that was maybe 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long, where he's using the bow and everything, and it was just super cool. So I'm more interested in kind of getting some of that stuff on here, which I bet that whole thing is on here. This looks really complete. It runs from Live at the Albert Hall in 1970. I mean, that might be it. Then there's Immigrant Song from 72, Madison Square Garden from 73, Earl's Court from 75, Nebworth from 79, and TV conferences and Old Grey Whistle Test and promos. I mean, I'm going to go over to my friend Dave's house and watch this because he and I watch stuff when he's kind of laid up, and I just took him in for surgery, so we have something we can watch. We don't always agree on music, but I can get away with, you know, most classic rock with him. So I can take that over there. He also likes Rush, and I got this for myself, which I've never seen. So again, Rush are not really a band I'm particularly that into, but I've heard this is excellent. I know I'll enjoy this. So looking forward to going over there and watching that. So that's in my future. He and I watched this together. He's could really care less about U2 or Jack White, but he was willing to watch it because of Jimmy Page. He and I also watched this, which is a movie I saw back in the theater in 1984, Erg, A Music War. And I got the LP of this, which was a 2-record set, along with an LP of this, which was also a 2-record set. This is called Burning Ambitions, A History of Punk. And here's the track listing on this. Hopefully that focuses so you could read it if you want. It's basically a British punk compilation, minus some of the major people, like the Sex Pistols aren't on here, the Clash aren't on here, Susie and the Banshees aren't on here, the Slits aren't on here, but otherwise it's got Buzzcocks, it's got Wire, it's got The Fall, 999, the 101ers, the Stranglers, Vibrators, X-Ray Specs, Heartbreakers, the Damned. So this was one of my big intros to punk rock, and I really like this album. This was kind of went with it. This was a little more new wave, but just the bands on here, and there's more bands in the movie than on the LPs. But it has the Police, who are kind of one of the few bands who gets more than one song in the movie, and great Police footage. I used to be really into the Police, pretty much up until, you know, Sting went solo. I'm not really interested in Sting's solo work. I had some of, Stuart Copeland's Clark Kent releases, though. I liked his solo stuff. The Police are on this. Devo do Uncontrollable Urge. The Go-Go's do We Got the Beat. Oingo Boingo. X. I think X do Beyond and Back. The Cramps, which is really memorable. The Surf Punks. Joan Jett. Perubu. Fantastic Gang of Four performance. Really cool Gary Newman performance. Klaus Nomi doing Total Eclipse, which Kristen Hoffman of the Mumps wrote. You know, there's so many bands in this. It's really fun because they're so all over the place. There's, I think, Steel Pulse doing reggae. There's UB40 in it. You know, from glammy stuff to just weird stuff to, you know, and there's some bad stuff. But everybody's version of bad stuff is different. I really don't like John Ottaway on here and some things, but they only last one song, so you get to see this, okay, they're weird thing. I like, John Cooper Clarke on there. He basically does, like, you know, a poem, and when I'm watching it with Dave, and he's like, what's that guy about, you know? So everybody's taste is different, so different things ring true to everybody on here. So I really enjoy this movie. Erg, A Music War. There. So that was kind of my little going down memory lane punk rock thing. Also, when my friend Mike Flint loaned me those two LPs when I was 16. He was really into the Jam, so here's a Jam album I got recently. This is a live album. I think it was their last release as far as a contractual release. And it's not one I know, because I just usually like band studio albums, so I had never really listened to that before. So I just got that. And a band who don't get talked about enough because they're thought of as a one-hit wonder band. I got this box set and I'm really excited about it. This is The Vapors. So the Jam were kind of considered a new mod band, and really the Vapors, even though they didn't try and, you know, do like mod fashion as much as the Jam did, I think they were kind of, you know, along that line. There were a whole lot of bands who came out that were really derivative neo-mod bands. Secret Affair, the Purple Hearts. I had all these records. Squire. Squire was pretty good. I liked Squire more than some of the others. There was a Maud's Mayday 79 live album that had a bunch of these bands on it. And, you know, they kind of tried to do jam-like dance rock, and it was okay. It just was very two-dimensional most of the time. I like stuff that kind of is going a bit towards that 66, 67 psychedelic pop era. Now they call that freak beat, I guess. And that was totally the sound that I liked out of 60s music. I used to get collections on the label C for Miles, and you would get something like Tomorrow that had, you know, I think Steve Howe in it originally, and The Idle Race that had Jeff Lynne, and Early Move singles, and The Creation, and The Action, and all that stuff that's kind of Who-inspired mod bands that are just on the verge of psychedelia. That was like my favorite sort of British rock stuff. But the Vapors are, you know, much more power pop. They really only did 2 albums at the time. They've actually reformed, and there's supposed to be an album by them that I will track down at some point. This was their first album, Nuclear Days. And this had the song Turning Japanese on it. That was their big hit. There was all this supposed stuff about it being about something that it wasn't. But, you know, it made for mythos and made it a really popular single. The thing is, the whole album's fantastic. I mean, that's probably one of the least of all the tracks. And their 45s are great, and I have a whole bunch of their 45s. So this collects that as bonus tracks. Then their second album was called Magnets. And Magnets has this Where's Waldo sort of cover that has like a traffic accident, and all these people huddled around the center in the shape of an eye. And I love this album. I'd say this album's even better than the first one. Less poppy. A lot of these are pretty dark songs. Jimmy Jones is about the Jonestown massacres. Civic Hall, Daylight Titans, Silver Machines, Magnets. Great. I'm so glad to get this on CD, because they really hadn't done very good reissues of these albums. I think there was one-way record CD where they tried to like squish both of them together and leave out some tracks. But this even has like alternate sessions from Magnets and alternate sessions from Nuclear Days on it. So that is just like gold for me. I'm so glad that somebody did a really nice reissue of the Vapors. And then people just didn't know what happened to them. I mean, I don't know that much about them, so I'm keen on going through this booklet because there just wasn't ever information about them. And they were so good. So, glad to get that. Then at the, like I was saying, another recent video I rewatched was Gigantic, the story of the 2 Johns. This is They Might Be Giants, a documentary that came out, when did this come out? Like 2007 or something? 2003. I'm old. Yeah, I think I saw this in the theater or something like that. This is a really good documentary. It was interesting because they talk about how big they were in alternative music, and it was about 1987 through 89 that they were really getting airplay. And that's right about the time that I moved to Georgia and didn't have a radio and didn't have MTV anymore, and really wasn't watching what I had watched during the earlier part of the 80s. So I kind of missed them initially. I read articles about them in Rolling Stone and some other magazines, and they sounded interesting, but I didn't hear anything until one of my friends bought the album Flood, and he just became enamored with it. His girlfriend was into it and got him into it. So then I got Flood, and lots of people consider that to be their best album. It's definitely their biggest album. So I went and rebought Flood, which, and I have a collection as well, too, that has stuff from the albums previous to that, which is They Might Be Giants, their first album, and Lincoln, which is their second. I love those three records. Apollo 18 was the album afterwards, and I really like that in retrospect. At the time, that was the point where I kind of got a little tired of them, because they have, I think it's a 20-minute suite where they do, that's called Fingertips. And it's short songs hooked together for 20 minutes. And what I guess it was meant to be is something you would take the CD, you would put it in your CD player and hit random. And then all those songs could pop up randomly wherever in between the other tracks on the album, which would have worked better than just hearing 20 minutes of songs that were like, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds. Yeah. But I really like them. I really admire them. This is a good documentary. Anybody who's interested in They Might Be Giants, this might be the place to start. Okay, then things I haven't listened to, but am looking forward to, after watching that Jack White, Edge, and Jimmy Page documentary, I found this used. So this is the tour that I did not see that I wanted to see by U2. So I'm sure this will be great, because I saw the REM Green tour a lot, and I felt from what I saw, this was influenced by that, but they had the budget to do way better. So I think this will be awesome. I mean, I read about it at the time, so I am looking forward to watching the Zoo TV tour. Then I also got a Nirvana documentary. So I don't know anything about this, whether it's that good or what, but I kind of grew up in the middle of the Seattle scene, so with a boyfriend who was really into Nirvana before they got popular, so I know the story really well, but it'll be interesting to see it as a video. I picked up this Tubes video, so excited about that. The Tubes just played here. They played a small show in Tacoma, and then they opened for the B-52s. The B-52s are doing their last tour, and the Tubes are opening. And they have a real short set. But I love the Tubes. I've seen them a lot, actually. The first time I saw them, though, was in 1983, opening for David Bowie, and they blew my mind. I liked them better than the Serious Moonlight show. After that, I paid attention to the Tubes. But this should be right around, this is like April 1981, so Completion Backwards Principle, and it'll have a fairly big stage show. I was talking to another viewer on here about the Tubes, and really, 1979 and before, seeing videos of that is incredible. It's totally worth your time to go watch live shows from 1975 and 1978. But this is still going to be really good. I like the Tubes a lot. And I picked up this Franz Ferdinand DVD that was used. I have never seen them. I really like the album they did with Sparks, and I've got a couple other albums of theirs. So this is their first album era video, so that ought to be good as well. Totally worth $5 to me. And then that's it for the videos. As far as some CDs I've gotten lately that I haven't really listened to yet, I've been trying to get more Byrds albums and Gene Clark related stuff. So I was on eBay, and there was a lot where you could buy several Gene Clark albums at a time. So I got his first solo album called Echoes. I've never heard this. I had a CD of Gene Clark and the Gosden Brothers at one point, but that was a long time ago, 30 years ago. So this one was in the lot as well. Gene Clark and Carla Olson. This is from 1987. Carla Olson was the leader of the Textones, and I'd like to get her first album. I've heard this is pretty good. It's on Razor and Tie. Then I got a couple of Byrds albums. I finally got a nice used copy of Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Has bonus tracks. And they had a copy of Farther Along. So really glad to find that too. And this is another video I've never seen, always meant to see. Chuck Berry's Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. So that's the show that has Keith Richards and Joey Spompanato from NRBQ, Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Linda Ronstadt, Etta James, plus there's interviews with Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Roy Orbison, Bo Diddley, the Everly Brothers, and Willie Dixon. And this was from 1987. So I know that's, and plus it comes with the CD. It's a DVD and CD package. Okay, I'm gonna take a left turn and talk about, oh, I didn't show you the LPs I got lately. All right, I'll show you some LPs. I went and got the Kinks' Greatest Hits, which was one of the first used records. I went up to Seattle to the University District. You used to walk up and down the University District, and there were all these record shops there. There's still some record shops up there now, but that was what I would want to do growing up, is have my mom drive into Seattle, drop me off for the day in the University District, and I'd go to Cellophane Square and Urban Renewal and Second Time Around and Roxy Music and Tower Records and Peaches Records, and just all the record stores were there, and go and look for records and learn and find things. Usually buy a pile of beat up records for $2 or $3 each. But this one I got in trouble for, because I think I spent $15 on it, which, was my allowance I brought up with me. And my mom couldn't believe that I spent $15 on a used record. And I'm telling her, Mom, it's out of print. It's got all these songs I want. And she didn't like the band's name. Boy, she didn't like that I liked the Kinks. That must be some perverse thing. But within a year's time, I had her telling my algebra teacher at school that Gene likes the Dead Kennedys. So, and she also took me to see 200 Motels, took me to see the Butthole Surfers, and stayed out in the car while I'm in there, and there's, all this feedback and, videos that I would not want my mom in there seeing. So my mom was great. She took me to a lot of shows and usually slept out in the car while I was enjoying myself at a show, just so I could come home safe. That's an awesome mom. So the Kinks always makes me think of my mom, because that's not what I should be listening to. I got this Blue Jays record. I may have shown this. I've gotten some things mixed up because I tried to clean up my room. That's when you can't find anything anymore. I think I might have shown that I got this Dillard's album. Yeah, so again, like I'm getting some Bird stuff. This is supposed to be a really good early one, Wheat Straw Sweet. And also at the same place, they had an Alan Price record. Alan Price, The Price is Right. Alan Price, of course, was the keyboardist in the Animals. I don't know this solo album at all. It's a promo. It's on Parrot. Yeah, it doesn't have a promo label, but it has a big promo stamp across the back here in red ink. So that's pretty exciting. Because I've been collecting guitars and things, I wanted to get a Les Paul and Mary Ford album. So here's a little collection of their 50s hits that will be interesting to hear. Les Paul, the creator of the Les Paul, he had a guitar that was called the Log, and then Gibson contracted him to help with them on the design of the Les Paul guitar, and then he and Mary Ford had hits, and they could promote, you know, his guitar as a star, like Chet Atkins and Gretsch had a relationship like that. Then, let's see, I found this Lenny Bruce album. So that's pretty cool. It's on, let's see, Fantasy, just like Creedence Clearwater Revival. I think this might be his third album. They list three other LPs on the back, so it might be the fourth. This one, yeah, of course, I don't see a year on it. It's one of those early albums that they don't really date that well. Also, I think I might have showed these. The Byrds, again, have been picking up this, which is supposed to be a really good one. And this one, which I think has a lot less contributions from Gene Clark on it. But McGuinn, Hillman, and Clark. I got Phil Ochs' Greatest Hits again. So I think I said in another video that this is not actually a Greatest Hits record. But the thing that's frustrating is this version of it didn't have the back cover that I really wanted. So this is a Pickwick version. I had a Pickwick version of his Rehearsals from Retirement album. So he must have gotten on that as a budget label in the 70s or 80s, because usually this back cover has a picture of him there with gold records, and it says 50 Phil Ochs fans can't be wrong, which it says here, but it doesn't have the picture with the gold records. But that's him in the gold lame suit, where he kind of wanted to do an Elvis Presley-like thing and connect to people. Really great songs. Produced by Van Dyke Parks, who, produced, or who was the co-writer with Brian Wilson on Smile. And Randy Newman's first album, too. I love Van Dyke Parks productions. I'm not that keen on his albums. Song Cycle I'd like to have, but I've tried listening to some of his other albums. I still really haven't developed, an ear for them, because he is really interesting, but I just kind of, fall a little to the side of enjoying his albums. I got Alice Cooper's Flush the Fashion. Obviously, this had been a radio station copy, so it has a big sticker on it. But I like this album. His new wave, first new wave-ish type album. It's the era that he doesn't remember that well, though, because it was when he was doing a lot of cocaine. This is a Phil Ochs album I found that's a live 1966 double LP. You know, there are a lot of live Phil Ochs tapes out there that I've seen issued on vinyl, and I try and get as many as I can. This is a Tower label record. Ian Whitcomb, who, you know, I know as a British mod pop kind of guy from the mid-60s, but I don't really know that much about him. I just thought it would be a good one to pick up and check out. Got the soundtrack to Midnight Cowboy with Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talkin', which was originally written by Fred Neil, who also wrote songs like The Dolphins, you know, really great Greenwich Village folk artist. And yeah, this ought to be pretty cool. I love that movie. And another movie soundtrack I picked up was McVicker, which was Roger Daltrey starred in. This is a really good soundtrack. If you don't know this, it's worth picking up. It has all of the Who on it from the 1979 period. You know, there's not songs written by Pete Townsend, but it's all these other Who side people. So it's Billy Nichols writes a song, and who is it? Graham, I gotta remember, sorry. And the sleeve has, it's not, I used to have one that was clear vinyl. This is a regular vinyl copy. Russ Ballard, that's who I was trying to think of. Russ Ballard wrote some of the songs on here. He wrote Free Me, which was a single. The big hit on here was Without Your Love, written by Billy Nichols. So yeah, Jeff Wayne is the other writer on this album. It's a good movie, too. I remember seeing it. So one of Roger Daltrey's better solo albums. And yeah, I think that's what I mainly have here to show you. So what I was going to talk about, and I'll spend a few more minutes going into this. So let's see, around 2010, 2011, I'd kind of gotten out of rock and roll for a while. I'd moved to another part of the country, pretty much left my record collection, except had, you know, maybe a box of CDs or something. I had been living with a boyfriend, and most of my record collection I either gave to him or had sold for paying the bills. So whenever he had a really good record collection, and if we had doubles, I'd just sell it. So when I left, I basically let him have all the records. But he could copy me copies anytime. So I sort of got out of record collecting for a while at that point. I've done this over the years. I've not had records, and then I have records again. You know, binge and purge. But when I was down in Arizona, I was in a really remote area, worked with a very small group of people, about 10 people, and that we were kind of the only people we got to see day to day, because we pretty much all lived on the property and took care of 650 parrots at a parrot rescue. So I'd come home beat, take care of my own birds, and then I wanted to watch videos or something. So for a while, I would sneak off to the movie theater every, you know, month or so and do something like watch the current Harry Potter movie. And then all the Harry Potter movies ended, and I was kind of bummed out because that was my little geek getaway thing. But someone on Facebook, I was fairly active on Facebook then, suggested that I start watching Doctor Who if I like Harry Potter, because they felt that it would be something I'd like. And I said, I've always been interested in Doctor Who, but it seems pretty complicated, and I'd really like to find somebody who's a fan who could tell me more about it and explain where I should start and things like that. And they said, oh, there's been the new revitalized version of the series, and if you just start at the new series and continue up to present, you'll understand everything that's going on. So I said, okay, cool. So for me, that was the start of binge watching, and I watched all of the current Doctor Who series in about 3 months' time. I would go home, watch another episode, for about 3 months. Then I ran out of the new Doctor Who, and I was really into it. So I decided I'd start buying videos of the classic Doctor Who, which I learned had started in 1963. And not all of those episodes were on video at the time, so by the time I got to the end of as much as I could collect over the course of about 2 years, they were just kind of wrapping up the available videos they could release. So back here, there we go. This bookshelf here, no, this one over here. Where am I? Oh, it's off camera. There it is. Ugh, that bookshelf. That's a whole bunch of Doctor Who videos. Mainly, I don't have as much on Blu-ray because I was buying DVDs. So I have all these Doctor Who videos, and what I learned about it that I liked so much was there was a history to it. This one's called Dalek Mania. It's not the greatest video. It's a compilation of the 2 theater Doctor Who movies that starred Peter Cushing. But the name Dalek Mania is appropriate because what I learned was it started in about 1963, and the whole Dalek thing, which was a monster in Doctor Who looks like a robot, but they're actually monsters, was a huge fad. I'm here in the United States, and that wasn't the case here. It was a huge fad around the time of Beatlemania. Younger kids, mainly boys, but to an extent little girls too, got into the monsters of Doctor Who. It was like an obsession, and everybody knew who a Dalek was, to the point that there's a couple photos of John Lennon with a Dalek. And I have an episode of Doctor Who. I don't have it right here. It's kind of buried down there, so I didn't pull it out. But there's an episode called The Chase. And The Chase actually has an appearance of the Beatles on stage in it. It wasn't filmed particularly for that episode. It was, something like a 1965 concert appearance that they got really good footage of. But what's interesting as far as music overlapping with Doctor Who is Doctor Who had the BBC slot right before Jukebox Jury. And unfortunately, what the BBC did was they had some kind of copyright legislation where they could only show a program twice. And after a program was showed twice, they tended to either throw away the canisters of film, or they would erase the videotape and reuse it. So the one thing is, I believe that copy of The Chase preserved that Beatles appearance, and it wasn't anywhere else. And there were some similar things like that as far as Doctor Who, because Doctor Who fanatics want all the episodes of Doctor Who, right? So there are some missing episodes. and people have been trying to track them down for years, because what often happened is, because the British Empire included South Africa, Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, all these different locations, they would send off their copies of a Doctor Who episode to be shown in that country, and sometimes they were preserved or they didn't get returned or something like that. So these sleuths who were so obsessed with Doctor Who tracked down these canisters and were able to, put out videos from the 60s that otherwise should have been trashed or lost. However, I think there's something like, I have to go back on Wikipedia to look, 93 episodes that are missing, but that's out of 800 something episodes that were filmed. So they've done an amazing amount of restoring things, and because it was a sequential program. That's, even though the Doctor travels in time and goes to other planets and all these things, it was basically a soap opera. It was sequential. So there's all these stories that, everybody wants all the pieces of the puzzle if you're an OCD Doctor Who fan. They have the scripts to all of them, and they even have the audio to all of them, because I love it. These have incredible documentaries on them, every one of them. And I mean, I've got a load of them here, but there's some that I like because it's almost like a record collector mentality and age group. And one interview with one fan, you can see he's got like rock and roll memorabilia all behind him. He's obviously a record collector as well. I know David Bowie was a big fan of Doctor Who. At one point, they were going to have David Bowie. They tried off and on for years to have him guest star in Doctor Who. There's an episode called The Caves of... Where is it? Yeah, The Caves of Androzani. Supposedly the villain in this was supposed to originally be played by David Bowie, but he was on tour with Sirius Moonlight, so he couldn't appear in this. He was obsessed with it during the 60s. There's a story about him being at a banquet and getting to be at the same table as Fraser Hines, who was one of the co-star of Doctor Who, and Patrick Troughton. Another person who was really involved with Doctor Who, I think it was Alex Harvey, or Alex Harvey's brother was a really close friend of Fraser Hines. There's different little rock and roll connections. So that's one of the many things I find fascinating about it is, British rock and roll, because it was such a British thing among the youth. I mean, the kids who would watch Doctor Who were usually the little brothers of the kids, the teenagers who would watch Jukebox Jury. There was this sort of generational thing around the TV set. So that's one of the things I like about it. Also, I just like the program. The writing, especially, is really good. There have been periods of time where, it's not that great, and there's a predictable formula to it. But to me, it's way more interesting than Star Wars. I like Star Trek, but I like Doctor Who more. And, that's all I'll probably say about it. I was going to talk about the audio. So the reason there are 60s audio that exists for Doctor Who when the program doesn't exist. There's this episode has a documentary called Love Off Air, and it's a 15-minute tribute to people dedicated enough to capture the soundtracks of Doctor Who in the 60s, enabling the recreated episodes on this DVD. So basically what that was, where there were these little kids, and they would take their tape recorder, and every week when their favorite show was on, they would hit record And on a little, 90-minute tape or whatever, they would record all of Doctor Who, their favorite show, because there weren't VCRs back then. So they had audio tapes of all of it. They might have their brother, occasionally interrupting them or something. But they went back to these kids who had these audio tapes, who grew up and donated their tapes to the BBC archives, and they were able to go in and enhance them and make them use other audio sources from other kids who were recording it and recreate episodes that way. And plus they had scripts where they had, descriptions of what the characters were doing, even though the episode itself was lost. And to me, that's pretty cool and pretty amazing and fan power. Okay, well, I think that's enough Freeform Friday. So hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care. Bye.